Welcome to part 3 of our 3-part Synergistic CX podcast episode, where we're diving into the customer experience of the flower shop industry. We're sitting down with Steven Di Pietro of Service Integrity, who will share his extensive CX insights with us. Steven, again, it's great to have you with us on this podcast. It's so exciting. I've known you forever. We've all known you forever, and you're so well respected in this industry. Can't wait to hear what details you can give us.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, so before we actually dive into the questions that we have prepared for you, I want to briefly recap what we have done so far. We have covered online reviews and ratings, and we have covered voice of the customer surveys. We generally refer to those as methods which produce subjective measurements about the customer experience. And you mentioned about voice of the customer surveys, which can be solicited or unsolicited. Unsolicited tend to get very few, if any, results. So businesses need to take the extra step and be more proactive and go the solicited route, draw the database, and start actively searching for input and feedback from their customers. So taking that as one part of the big customer experience picture, and that is the customer thoughts and feelings collected by subjective methodologies which produce objective measurements. The question is, should, in your opinion, businesses rely solely on those methodologies? They are easy to employ, deploy, get really some very useful metrics if you really correlate the two, the journey and the marketing mix. But is this enough for the businesses to understand their customers?
I've actually got a one-letter answer, not a one-word, but a one-letter answer, and it's the letter T. T as in town, T as in Tom. If you visualize the letter T, it's got a vertical axis and it's got a horizontal. What we're talking about is the horizontal part of the journey, and you have a graph there, we had a graph earlier of the journey. With the subjectives, whether it's solicited or unsolicited, you get a lot of data, depending if I'm in America or not. And you get a lot of data, but it's very shallow. You can't ask many questions. Christiane has spoken about the questions, the NPS questions, like would you recommend to friends and family? It's a shallow question in that it's a shallow experience or the feedback. You may have a follow-up question if they score a 0 or a 3, but you don't ask many. So you get a lot of data, but it's very shallow. Then that on its own doesn't sit anywhere, it just falls to the ground. You need something supporting it. So then I go to the vertical axis. And the vertical axis is the objectives, the objective measurements. You don't get as broad data, you get less data, which is, you think, oh, less is not better. But less is more many times. So you don't get as much data, you go straight down, but you do go deeper. It's also more expensive because you have to do something deeper. So it's this interplay. The thing is about the vertical measurements. So we talk about mystery shopping, for example. You might have a 38 question or 40 or a 100 question questionnaire. That will give you something you can diagnose. So it's a diagnostic tool. So you see a problem along the top. Where is my problem? Let's measure. And then we can diagnose exactly where we're falling over in this customer journey. So I always visualize it as the letter T. You can't if you have one, it just tips over on its own. If you have the horizontal, it just falls without the vertical. You need them both. So I think we need this balance, and it's often forgotten because of expense. And because of this mental thing of like, but I can get 10,000 reviews. I can go on Google and get them for free. Why would I pay for something? Because you're not going to get the depth and you can't diagnose the problem. I can say to you, you have a problem with this particular thing, and there's the nerve, and you touch the nerve. And that's the thing to fix, as opposed to, we've got a problem, our customer satisfaction scores have dropped. let's throw money at staff training. Let's throw money at new refits. Let's scattergun, just spend money and it will fix the problem. You don't need to. You can save money by just spending more on the vertical and just diagnosing that one thing and just fixing that. And overall, it saves you money. So, yeah, it's a very simple answer when you think of it like that, but it's quite complex to get out of the corporate mindset of save money today.
That's actually a very interesting, great metaphor. That's the first time I hear about it. So allow me to take you then a step deeper, and let's move on to the objective methodologies, the methodologies which produce objective measurements, such as mystery shop evaluations, internal quality and process evaluations. What I'm interested to know, in your experience, how do the objective methodologies and the subjective methodologies correlate with regards to each other? And you started to allude about how they complement, but if you can take the step deeper from the standpoint of correlation and
we're doing this now. We've started doing it thanks to a lot of it's thanks to AI in a way. But what we do is we look at the scores from customer feedback over different customer reviews. And then we put them on one axis, and on the other axis, we look at the mystery shop scores, for example. And so we'll say this store 17 has an average customer rating of 80%, and its mystery shop score is 75%. And we put those as a plot on a graph. Do that for all of the stores over a period of time and draw a line through it, a statistical line through it, and look for, you can actually get a statistical correlation. What that does when you do it, number one, tells you that there is a correlation, if there is one, but also it tells you that you're measuring the correct things. So sometimes the objective measurements are the wrong measurements. So Christiane has said this in part 2, where are we actually measuring the right things? If it's a high scoring thing or it's not relevant to the customer, don't measure it. Like, be very focused. Less is more in the objective measurements. You could have an objective measurement like wait times on a call center, how many customers in the store. There are lots of objective measurements. But mystery shopping is a way to cut through that and just say, well, how does that score, because we've got a score, can correlate to that score, and you can graph it. Now, the danger and the thing to be careful of is you're not going to find a one-for-one correlation. You will probably get a moderate correlation because there are other factors that play with the subjectives. Like, it might just be that the marketing department has done a stupid ad campaign. So they're doing something to pollute the brand and the scores come down. It could be that the store is in a bad location. It could be that the pricing has been increased. There are factors that are outside of those measurements that you can control. So you might get a weak to moderate correlation, but that's actually all you need, because it just shows you that we're measuring the right things.
Excellent. So let me summarize what I understood. So if we get, starting from the tools and the methodologies which produce the subjective metrics for us, online reviews and ratings, great tool, but we can get only as many as we get. We have not really no control as to how many we can get and the depth. So these are really the customer thoughts and feelings. 5 stars and a short comment. That's it. With the voice of the customer surveys, maybe we can go a step deeper because we can control what we are asking. It is very difficult to get responses if we just leave it to be unsolicited type of study. If we go to the solicited study, then we're starting to invest more. We're getting more, but we're investing more. Yeah. But it is really the depth about how we can action to improve is when we move to the objective measurements.
Absolutely.
And this is where we get the information that will allow us to action and produce results.
What am I going to fix? What am I going to fix? Like, you're measuring this stuff. What are you going to do with it? I don't know. What are you going to fix? I don't know where to start. So this is what it gives you, that tool. The part about the subjective, the solicited and unsolicited is an important one, because we actually do that layer. So we overlay the customer sentiments from Google reviews and those types of things. And then we also do it through the solicited feedback. And often we do that simply within the mystery shop report. So this is where the AI part comes in. You're getting all this data, but people are leaving you comments. So at the end of a mystery shop, you say something like, just tell us overall something about the experience, and subjective. But even those comments, and you don't get as many, if you extract customer sentiment using AI, it's the easiest way to do it, and correlate those to the scores, you get a great match. And that one actually has a higher correlation. But that's, you see you have this solicited, do the graph, then you have the unsolicited, do the graph, and they both will show a correlation. So you can put layers on this, and it just gives you confidence to say, like, wow, we're measuring the right things. And this is where what do I do with it? If we increase our mystery shop scores by 10%, what impact is that going to have on customer satisfaction? You have to go that next step. And this is then the ROI question. It's like, well, why should I invest in this objective measurement? Because if you increase this by 10%, you're going to get this much more satisfaction. Does that give you more sales? Well, then you can overlay another one, which is sales growth. Let's look at the sales growth. So we're getting into the weeds here, but you can actually show that the sales growth is a good one because it removes the things like, oh, this store's in a bad location, this store is smaller, this store is whatever. Sales growth is a good measurement because it equalizes. The stores that are growing the most are the ones with the highest customer reviews, and they are the ones with the highest mystery shop scores. So then you say, fix this one thing. I keep kind of pointing, fix that thing, and it all falls out. So it's actually really simple, but that's not easy to do. You need discipline, you need budget, you need to be focused.
Mm-hmm. So from that standpoint, the online reviews and ratings, the customer thoughts and feelings, at least the way that you explained it, it feels to me that this is the result of what has been done before that.
Absolutely.
And what has been done before that can be measured and should be measured in depth. And the tools, and the best tools for that are the tools that produce the objective metrics.
Yeah, and the franchising world is the greatest one to think about, or the best one to think about. Franchises succeed because someone has cracked the code. Mm-hmm. Say, if you're buying coffee, I had a coffee shop, I had it running a certain way, and it's wildly successful. You've cracked the code in terms of something, whether it's the way you serve, it's the color of the couches, the coffee, whatever. You've cracked the code. So then you get the code and you sell it. And you say, this is the pattern, this is what you do to have run a successful coffee shop, and I will get my royalties, and off you go. Starbucks is born. The consumer has, when they go there, they have an expectation. The brand has built a persona, and they have an expectation. Out of that expectation comes from that process, the McDonald's process. So McDonald's, you don't give it a 1-star rating because the food's not as good as a Michelin star. It's because it wasn't what you expected. So that comes back to the definition of service, which is, I'm going a long way around. The definition of service to me is meeting the customer's expectation every single time. You don't have to exceed it. You just have to meet it. And that's difficult enough.
That's difficult enough.
So the consumer has an expectation built on your brand. Are you executing that expectation? And that's what we're doing. So if they don't, they are going to leave you a negative review because their expectation that runs from your strategy was not met. So it's actually obvious that the online reviews are going to come from your process. And then the question is, am I doing the processes? That's where the objectives come in.
I'll take you on that last one because the obvious is usually the most difficult to spot and to observe.
It's obvious. It's like you get a puzzle and you say, I don't know how to do this puzzle. And someone says, oh, you tie the knot like that and you do this and you go, oh, that's obvious.
Exactly.
It's obvious in that sense.
So we are already deep enough, but allow me to really get one step deeper. So in your LinkedIn profile, you state that I love the interaction between people, strategy, and customers.
Yeah.
So you started talking about this. I just want to take you that level. down?
Yeah, so metaphorically or even physically, a stool needs at least 3 legs. And I've always been interested. I used to be in merchant banking, and what we were always looking at was, do we like the strategy, and can this company execute the strategy? So strategy, execution, strategy, execution. That is the world of mystery shopping. That is the world that we're talking about. But then there is this other leg, which is the people side of it. Because regardless of how the world is going, there is going to be a human interaction. Or the people part of it is actually the customer itself. Like, what did they feel? So what did my staff feel? What did my customer feel? So I think you need those 3 legs, and you need a good strategy. This is my coffee shop strategy. This is my florist strategy. You need to execute it, which is what we're talking about. And then the people side of it is, well, how are the people interplaying within this whole process? Yes, there are buildings, there's fit outs, there's stock, and there are all of those things, but that's executing the strategy. The people need to execute the strategy. So I see it as a 3-legged stool. If you don't have the strategy, it falls over. If you don't have any one of those, it falls over.
I was going to ask you about, is there any secret key to success, but we just answered it.
I think it's the 3, and it's the same for my business. What's the strategy? Are we executing? And do we have the people in place to do that? And the people side is also the customer. It's not just your employees. And this is where we talk about customer surveys, voice of the customer. Are we doing these things that make them feel a certain way? So people is split into customers and staff.
Okay, so the T
and the stool.
On the 3-legged stool.
Yes.
And now let's put something on top of that.
Okay.
So we talked about subjective methodologies. We covered the objective methodologies. What is next in the world of customer experience?
What is next is, people will say it's AI, it's all of these wonderful things that I agree are excellent. But the what is next is nothing new. It's still executing your strategy. Like, even if I have a robot come into this bridal suite and deliver coffees, like, did it bring me the right coffee? Like, did they execute what they had to do? I'm expecting a coffee to arrive in 10 minutes. Did it arrive? It's the human behavior is we still want that expectation. So what's going to change is the reporting. It's doing things like I said about we can use AI to do the analysis and all of that great stuff. You can use a robot to come and serve people. But ultimately, what changes is actually nothing. We're still physiologically the same species that we were 20, 30,000 years ago, with the same passions, the same things that make us angry. We ultimately still are the consumer. When AI starts buying things for its own good, like a robot orders a part for itself, that's a different story, and I don't know what that one is. But as long as humans are in the picture, we're still physiologically the same things we were, the same bits of skin wrapped around bones with the same emotions. So we romanticize the future, and I think we lose our focus. So my answer is, what's changing in the future? I think nothing. What's changing is the tools, and we can't get distracted by the shiny new lights. Did that coffee arrive when it should have? Customer expectation. That's probably an unsatisfactory answer, because you'd love to see something new. So, wow, there's that thing. The new thing is like call centers. We talked about this yesterday. Call centers, you can now get every call recording and you can run it through AI, and every single interplay, every single call in a call center can be evaluated now. Awesome, great new technology. But really, ultimately, what's that doing? It's just giving you more data, and it's reducing it's increasing the confidence level that the data you've got is correct. But what's that data? Whether I've got a 5% sample or a 100% sample, it's still that, did we execute? Did that person talk to them correctly? That's ultimately still the same thing. So what's changing? Actually nothing. Boring.
No, I was actually going to come back to this with a story from yesterday. But nonetheless, that is my observation as well. we can go high flute as much as we want, but it's really getting down to the basics. Understanding the basics is what will drive it. And the story is, so no one knows the story, but we are recording this podcast here at 7 in the morning. There are no conference rooms available.
I know what you're going to say. This is what I was thinking. Please, yeah.
Okay. So nothing was available at the hotel. So I went to the general manager of the hotel, Julian, and just asked, we're going to do a podcast about this. Is there anything that you can offer? He said, wait. And he got me here and I said, this is the bridal room. That is the room for your podcast.
Yeah. This hotel, Millennium Hotel in Hong Kong, is a classic example of the hotel manager is walking around. Last night, we went out for dinner. The manager's walking around. It was like 7 o'clock at night. He's there in the morning. The staff, it's this human feeling of they care about me. How is that going to change with technology? What can change is maybe there'll be a camera recording whether the staff were spending enough time or they were quick enough at check-in and all those. Sure. But that feeling, and we've all remarked about how extraordinary the service has been. And we're cynical shopping people. We're very cynical. So, yeah, that doesn't change. Absolutely agree.
Finally, a piece of advice. How should businesses pick the company to measure their business objectively?
How should a company, should a potential client choose a mystery, for example, mystery shopping?
Exactly.
The first thing they need to do, and it's probably the most important, make sure they are part of, in this case, the Mystery Shopping Professionals Association, because there are levels of industry involvement. We came here, we were learning from companies in China, how they do it, learning from companies all over the world. And you think, like, I can take that back. I'm learning best practice. And it sounds very blah, blah, blah. But it is important. And the mixing and the going on a tour at the end of the conference you're sitting on a bus and you're talking to someone, you strike up these conversations and you say, like, wow, I could use that. So these companies are the ones who are at the leading edge. We talked about AI. We're talking about the leading edge stuff. So I would choose someone in the association because it shows that they take it seriously, that it's not just, oh, we're a consulting firm and, oh, we do mystery shopping. No, this is a very, very specialized industry and is super, super tough. So it's not as simple as it sounds. You have to be careful of those. And also it shows that you're investing in the industry itself, because by coming here, we're investing. So it's for the people who believe in the industry. When you're evaluating companies themselves, I really would stay away from price. Now, obviously, if someone is 3 times more expensive, don't do that. But the cheapest could be the better one, but often it's not. So because you get these companies that are doing this on the side, and they don't understand the costs of doing what we do. So you need someone who's actually seriously looking at their costs and you know that they're going to deliver. So I would not I'm saying stay away from price, but don't make price the thing. You see these things of like reverse auctions. Now you see it especially in America, where you go online and you put your bid in and it's like a reverse auction, the lowest price wins. That's not great. Now, so I would stay away from those things and I wouldn't choose based on price. And then it's the relationship, it's the human side. Do I like these people? Can I talk to them? Because we have, and everyone in this industry knows, we have really difficult conversations with our clients. As simple as that store was terrible, but that store that got the really low score could be the master franchisee's original store and they love it to death. And they say, like, you can't say that about my store and I'm paying for this. So you have difficult conversations. You could have conversations about, you say, this is not working, but they say, we think it is. And they don't believe you. They'll shoot the messenger. So you need someone who you are confident that you can have a difficult conversation about your own business, because we have the most difficult conversations. we say that thing is broken. How are you going to react to that person who tells you that news? So yeah, I would say the association, don't shop on price, and that relationship. Don't be blinded by the reports. Don't be blinded by the machine that goes bing. It's those three things.
So back to fundamentals.
Again, it's human nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I'll actually take the opportunity. This is the first time that we do the setup where we actually have a face-to-face conversation. So far, it has always been 4 people in 4 different corners of the world conversing online, but this is really the first time that we do it face-to-face. So with the podcast, we're also creating each month a magazine where we use the industry study and the articles, contributions from special guests. But this is the inaugural edition of the magazine. This is the January 2024 magazine. So this is really the first edition. It is, as you can see, this is a small one. The last one is
Right.
quite more voluminous. But I'll give you both as a token of appreciation for your participation today.
Thank you.
So I'll just read dedication. Dear Steven, with immense pleasure, I present you with the inaugural issue of our magazine. Your expertise and perspective bring incredible value to our audience. Thank you, the CX channel team.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steven.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It was great to talk to you all.
Thank you so much, Steven. Thank you very much for making the time to join us today. It's always great to talk with you, and your insights are always. We've met, and you say all sorts of interesting things every time we meet, and every time there's always something new to learn, and always some new insight that we see, or some perspective that you have to share. That's always just fantastic. So thank you very much for that. I know you've got to run to catch a train, but real quick before we close things out, is if there's someone listening who wants to connect with you or with Service Integrity, what's the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. It's one word: serviceintegrity.com.au. So it's .au for Australia, but through that website we service the whole world these days. So that's a lot of fun.
All right. Well, thank you again.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Steve.
This wraps up part 3 of our 3-part Synergistic CX podcast episode, where we examine the customer experience of the flower shop micro industry. If you found this interesting, please give us a like and hit that subscribe button to stay on top of each episode of the Synergistic CX podcast as we dive into other micro industries and topics related to customer experience. Leave us a comment and tell us what micro industry you want to see next. And as always, you can find us here at the CX channel on YouTube, LinkedIn, or your other favorite social media platform. You can also visit our website, cx-channel.com, where you can download this microindustry study in our free magazine that Emil was showing you right there, Synergistic CX. That's cx-channel.com. Thank you, and we'll see you again next time here on the CX channel, where CX professionals converge.